Hey guys, it's Ollie from Rad Season. Welcome to the Rad Season show. I'm super stoked to be joined today by the founder of The Wave in Bristol and the chairman of Surfing England, Nick Hounsfield. Nick, how are you?
Really good, thanks. Really good. Nice to be here.
Yeah. And whereabouts are you at the moment?
In Bristol. So I live near the centre of Bristol. So I'm at home right now, but probably going to be popping up to the Wave later. And living the dream right now. It's still a little bit warm. The water's still warm, and we've got waves on tap, so it's all good.
Nice. And how far you are? How far is your home from the office, from the Wave?
About 15 minutes. So not far. Yeah.
Nice one. Cool, man. Well, I'd love to, if you're all right, just jump back into where surfing began for you, and where did you grow up?
So I grew up in the southeast, but we spent most of my time in the sort of southern coast. My grandma had a little place down on the southern coast near sort of Brighton, Middleton, Worthing sort of area, and so spent a lot of weekends down there riding tiny little waves down by breakwaters and learning to swim and fish and sail and all that kind of stuff. And then we spent all of our main holidays down in Cornwall. So yeah, that's where I kind of got hooked into surfing at about 5 years old. So nearly, crikey, 44 years ago. Yeah.
And was that sort of when you first got introduced to it?
That's when I first got introduced to it. So my dad bought a sort of pop-out board, one of the real early ones that came over from California. I think that the one he had was, and that was the first thing that I rode, which was it was great. Yeah, I remember it's like a little green board, almost lime green board with a red and yellow stringer. Still got some photos of it somewhere.
And would you go then, when you got back home, would you go on the south coast as well, or were you sort of just waiting until you could go on holiday? And
no, we'd still do a lot of belly boarding. Had proper old wooden boards. Had some weird polystyrene, quite big thing, kind of in between a short board and a belly board that I used to stand up on, which I can still remember to this day. Really floaty thing. And that's how I just kept going whenever I could, really.
Nice. Yeah. And what did you do sort of after going, I guess, from school? Did you then go to university?
Yeah, I was at university in London, and again, still tried to, wherever possible, was able to get to the coast, still spending weekends down at the coastline, wherever I possibly could. Yeah.
Nice one. And what did you study?
Osteopathy. So I was originally going to go off and do oceanography and marine biology or marine sciences. And then my dad's an osteopath, and I knew a lot about osteopathy back then from him. And so I decided, because I just wanted to fundamentally help people. So I decided, and I'm pretty good with my hands, so I wanted to do something very that help people, but also use my hands. And so I went into sort of, doing that kind of thing. So sorting out people's health and well-being through manipulation of joints and muscles and all that kind of thing. Problem solving.
And were you did you then join the family practice, or did you Okay.
Yeah. So I set up, I met my wife, who's an osteopath. So we met at college. And then my wife, my sister, my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law, and my dad, we all set up the family practice in Bristol.
Proper family business then. Just get everyone involved.
The mafia. The nice mafia.
Yeah. Cool. And then when did you then decide, okay, with what was going on with surfing and with your passion for surfing, when did the idea for the wave come about? I mean, like, how did that all begin?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, it was in 2010 that the sort of mission started, so to speak. Before then, I didn't really understand anything about like wave park technology and stuff like that. To me, it was just all about getting to the ocean, and I really understood how important it was for me to fundamentally get out into the real ocean, real waves, and have, you know, really great horizons and perspective on life, and that was really important to me. And then, unfortunately, my dad died from pancreatic cancer, and it was literally on his deathbed that I said to him, look, I made a promise to him to do something that would be bold, something courageous, something a bit wacky, that would really impact people's health and well-being on a much bigger scale. And I had absolutely no idea, first of all, what that promise was actually going to transpire to be. But I guess over the sort of grieving process of those next 6 months was around starting to formulate, right, well, I'm having an impact on people's health and well-being at the moment, which is great, but it was only one person at a time, normally middle-class white people. It was really, really narrow, and I didn't feel like I was really creating massive impact, or not a diverse amount of impact. And so I started to think about building a destination, a place where people could go, visit, exercise, eat good food, understand, educate themselves a bit on things that I felt were really important, and also just create those connections between different people, people who normally, and definitely in Bristol, that there was a real rift around that time of people really engaging with each other. And so that's what I was starting to think. It was then becoming almost like a health destination, which is like gardens and like amazing food, and something that pulls it all together. And I looked at the Eden Project. I've been really, really inspired by the Eden Project for many years, and I thought something like that in Bristol could be really wicked. And then I called Tim Smith and said, Tim, I want to do something like this, but I wasn't sure what the hook would be in the middle, something that would be different. And I stumbled across on that actual day, waveguard technology got announced for the very first time, and that completely blew my mind. It was like, if being a mass consumer of surfing and anything about it, if you put that at the centerpiece of that bigger vision, that holistic vision, that would fly. Spoke to Tim Smith about it, and he said, that's just the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. But you 100% must do it. And opened up his book, his black book of people who could help me do that. And that was the proper start, really. Having somebody who was so out there go, you've just got to do it, was like, right, there's no reason why I shouldn't.
And had you surfed like any artificial waves before that, like flow riders, or like the one in Dubai or anything like that?
No, I didn't even really know that they existed. I mean, it was just literally, it just flashed up on YouTube one day. It's like, oh, that's quite cool. There's a lake, surfing in a lake. And then suddenly this, from this sort of mist, it was sort of quite a grainy video. And suddenly out of this mist suddenly appeared perfect wave. I was like, oh, that's so cool to look at. And then the very last clip was somebody actually surfing it, and I was like, oh my god. It's like, if you put that in Bristol, that would fly. I know that will fly. I've got so many people around here who love surfing, love the outdoors, can't live by the sea because of work or home life or what have you. Put it here, that's going to fly. I just know it's going to fly.
And what were kind of like going from that idea stage and then reaching out to people, getting their thoughts on it? What was like, I guess, the initial kind of plan? I mean, like, were you thinking like, we got to raise money here straight away to make this happen? How were you sort of like mapping it all out? Like did you put a business plan together for it like straight away, or did you kind of like just have some conversations first? And then...
Not really. It was very back of a fag packet, not that I smoke, but back of an envelope idea. I mean, fundamentally, and it, you know, it's interesting reflecting back on that fundamentally the thing that we started out with was a very clear purpose on why we wanted to do something. I guess that was always the common thread all the way through. Is I already knew why we had to do it, what our core purpose was. That got refined quite heavily. I met up with this guy called Chris Hines, who amazing guy who's been a mentor for the last 11 years, really. He's set up, was one of the founders of Surfers Against Sewage, and was also sustainability director for the Eden Project. And the very, very first thing we did was not a business plan, but actually we wrote our sustainability policy, how we were going to be as a business, what were our, you know, what's going to be our ethos and our values.
Yeah.
And then off the back of that, we started to then go, right, well, we clearly can't just be a charity because we're going to have to raise tons of money. So we've got to be profitable because we've got to raise investment, but we can be profitable with a really clear purpose on the way that we want to be as a business and the way that we want to touch lives in the long term. So that always, you know, we I mean, it's based around the sort of triple bottom line of sustainability for a business. We call it the 3 wave principle now, the 3 waves of making sure that we're financially sustainable, socially impactful, and making sure that we're doing no harm to the environment or minimize any harm to the environment. And that became the template by which all of our decisions were made. And then you feed into that the business plan, the business modeling, and then that starts to flow off that, really.
Nice. And with the manufacturing from it, was that all done by Wavegarden then? Was that sort of their technology? And
yeah, so it was the original technology that I put my money down to sort of secure the exclusivity for. Actually, that ended up being installed in a couple of places: Surf Snowdonia, a place called Enland in Texas. But because it took me so long to be able to raise the money, actually the second technology was developed in that time, and actually we got the benefit of you know the number 2 version 2, which, you know, fundamentally addressed all of our concerns around single points of failure in the engineering, you know, capacity of the lake, which obviously drives the business model, the business plan, and it addressed like loads and loads of our worries, and so that then when they release the Cove technology, which it's called, it was like that now is a really investable prospect. And that's and hence we signed on the dotted line with that.
And what were the complications, or what were the kind of, I guess, the barriers over the years from when you started, like in 2010, to then kind of building it and then opening in 2019, right? I mean,
I mean, man, this is almost a novel now in terms of the number of things we had to overcome. I guess initially, you know, I started it off with just 500 quid in the bank, and suddenly had this idea and just didn't know what to do. So I called upon, Chris Hines again was amazing throughout that whole process. Got some PR and comms team who I work with, Abby and Fresh PR, and we decided to just be a little bit gung-ho on it and said, look, let's before people worry about where something's going to go, let's just see if people are up for it. So we did quite a big press release in Bristol and said, look, this is the vision. This is going to be this incredible place that we want to build. Who's up for it? And of course, everyone's like, yeah, it's going to be amazing.
Everyone sticks their head up.
Yeah, exactly. Or a lot of people said, it's going to be amazing, but I'm sure all the amazing ideas that people have in Bristol never really come to fruition. So there's a little bit of cynicism there in terms of, I guess, the bureaucracy and the process. But we managed to get a huge amount of buy-in to the concept before we then start to go, right, now, do you mind it being in this piece of land? And we had a few false starts and pieces of land. So we then, at times, the NIMBYs kind of then jumped up and said, well, it's a really good idea, but not in my backyard. And it's like, oh, here we go. But anyway, we found about fourth or fifth attempt, we found this amazing piece of land, which obviously the Wave Bristol's built in now. And, a local neighborhood that were 90% up for it, could see the benefits of it. So that was a massive thing to sort of start with. Then you had to get planning. So we had to sort of, it's greenbelt land. So it's fiercely protected land. So we had to really show that we are clearly just doing something that's just for, health and well-being and leisure, rather than us trying to build, massive housing development or anything like that. So we weren't, we had to show that we were doing the right thing. But of course, we had no experience. We had no track record. So they just had to take our word for it. And of course, a lot of that is around stakeholder management, making sure that people, just pressing flesh and looking people in the eyes and going, we're not going to be a dick. We're going to do it properly, and make sure that we're true to our word, really. And then the next thing was securing the technology, designing this incredible place that's never ever been done before. And then also the massive task, which was raising at that time nearly 27 million pounds, which never done before personally. I brought together this guy, Craig Stoddard, who's a very old dear friend of mine, who's really good business guy, been worked in big corporations before, and he was able to help put together the sort of business plan and make us a very investable business. Nice. But oh my goodness, there's just hundreds, if not thousands, of ups and downs all along the way.
And didn't you start a production sort of arm during that time as well, where you guys were kind of putting together content and sort of digital content and educational books and things like that? So along the way, we, again, because we had very clear vision of the why, the purpose that we're wanting to do. So it made us, it actually made a very open door to be able to talk to all stakeholders, but including some amazing people like Sam Bleakley, Eastleigh Britain, people who working in really cool spaces within the surf industry, and said, look, support us, we'll support you. What are you up to? Eastleigh's doing amazing research around health and well-being and blue health and that whole sphere that she's absolutely nailed. And Sam Bleakley has been amazing at writing books and content and making films. And so what we just tried to do all along the way is synergize along the way. We're all talking the same language. Mm-hmm. So let's create some volume to it, rather than people who got these amazing ideas and amazing way of speaking and projecting, but maybe don't have the platform yet to be able to do it. So it's right, I think the Wave is going to be a really good platform for us to talk to a whole new breed of surfers, people starting from afresh. So why don't we be giving them the right content that is something that we believe is the future? So they've really helped along the way for nearly 8 years, producing that kind of content, writing books that we feel really aligned with, doing incredible films like the Brilliant Corners films, which WSL recently bought a series of it as well. Mm-hmm. because it's such unique, valuable content that shows a very different side of surfing, surf culture, and surf tourism. So Nice. And did that then, I mean, if you weren't busy enough, that kind of then opened up doors to Surfing England,
Mhm.
and then you got involved there as well, right? And like, was that so? What happened? Or
Yeah, so I went and did a presentation to Surfing England when they had an AGM one time about what we were doing, and weirdly enough, it was just down the road from the Wave Bristol, so it was 1 or 2 miles down the road. So I was able to say, look, it's potentially going to be here, and they gave us full backing. And I was like, well, there must be some kind of government funding that could also help build something like this. There must be something out there. And so I had a really good discussion with the board of directors and head of ops at that time, Nick Rees, and said, look, can we open up some conversation with Sport England or UK Sport or what have you? It's like, we're really early stage still at the moment. It's like we're not even a national recognized national governing body yet. So any chance of getting any kind of funding is just not going to happen. And the more and more I've dug into it, and I've done quite a lot of governance stuff before, I was like, okay, well, if I can help elevate this organization. Back then it was Surfing GB, and later it went to Surfing England. But if we can elevate that and become a really great national governing body, then whether the Wave gets some money or not actually doesn't matter. It's just going to be really good to elevate the sport generally and bring, really improve our profile as a sport. And that's got to bring more opportunities for the future. So then I committed to being a director for a number of years. Also helped set up the original British Surfing, which has just been around for just a couple of years and is hopefully going to be funded very soon by UK Sport. Mm-hmm. And then last year it was a bit of a weird year. Last year I had a massive stroke just to complicate matters, but then I stepped up to be chairman of Surfing England just to kind of steady the ship.
Okay.
Yeah.
And were there any conversations around the Olympics kind of back then, like in sort of like 2015, 2016? Was that sort of on the cards, like with the ISA or anything? Or
the ISA. I mean, Fernando Aguirre and Bob Fasolo have been working on this for a number of years. Yeah. So it's a very clear intent. But I also knew that understanding the Olympic system, it's at least 8 years to. I mean, they've been Duke. The Duke had been working on that sort of nearly 100 years. But we knew that there was a cycle, about an 8-year cycle, to be able to put in an application. And obviously you need to find somewhere where there are waves to be able to do the very first sort of surf competition. And there was a lot of chat around particularly Japan, because there could be potentially a wave pool that would overcome any of the issues around lack of waves. So there was, it was a real hotbed of activity around that time about wave pools in Japan. There had been one already, and was that going to be part of the future? But of course they then no, let's focus on ocean waves properly, and let's make sure that we can create a future with that, and maybe later wave pools will become part of the mix, maybe not.
And then sort of, I mean, as you mentioned last year, I mean, with that all happening, I mean, how did it? When you did get a stroke, what sort of brought that on? Like, what was the reason?
Don't really know. I mean, it may be like build up of stress over a number of years. Wouldn't be surprising. I think everybody who knows me recognize that possibly it's been quite a long journey, and it's been pretty tough at times.
Yeah.
But also it was February the 1st, and we did have a lot of visitors from Southeast Asia. We had some Koreans came over to visit. It may be that I'd picked up something early stage coronavirus from them, and it's definitely well recognised that particularly slightly younger people, although I don't always feel young at the moment, but slightly younger people can get as a sign and symptom getting strokes. So either way, first of February, I had a massive stroke whilst playing hockey. I play a lot of hockey, and then a few things went wrong, and it ended up me having 8 strokes, which was a bit demoralising, to say the least.
And then, like, when you were recovering, then that was probably when lockdown started around sort of March time, right?
Yeah. So I was in hospital for about, I think maybe I was in there for 2 or 3 weeks. I can't quite remember. I'd lost all of my speech. I couldn't speak at all. Lost a bit of my right hand being able to be used, and a few things around my face. But then we got taken away from hospital, told to go home because of the potential risk of COVID outbreak and stuff. It's like, you're much better at home. But then I couldn't do any of the therapy stuff because we weren't having any home visits at that stage as well. So it all went into lockdown. And I wasn't in the best of places. And then one day I thought, I just need to go and visit the Wave. It was pretty sad because the whole place was shut down as well. There were no staff there, just a couple of staff members there. This beautiful, pristine lake with no waves running. And also it's starting to, because it's really warm last year, starting to get a little bit algae. And I was like, it's like my amazing lake is now getting kind of, it's getting a bit messed up. So I then ended up going, I'm just going to see how bad the algae is. So I just got this broom and got my board shorts on and started cleaning it. And I was like, it's coming up really well. So I was like, all right, I'm going to keep going. And then, like, literally 3 months later, I was still cleaning the lake. Really happy. Didn't have to talk to anyone, and I couldn't really talk to anyone. But I was just in, beautiful, pristine water by that stage. Really warm. It was like almost Caribbean temperature, and it weirdly became almost my own medicine chest. Like this amazing place where, I've been talking for so many years about blue health and how it can potentially improve people's mental health and physical well-being. And I honestly was suddenly being giving a massive dose of it every single day. And I really think that this isn't just me making it up, that it really was a big part of my healing, is just being in blue
being in the water. Huh?
Yeah, being in the water, swimming, cleaning, not having to talk to anybody, just making all of my brain start to just reconnect a bit, being outside, being in fresh air. I think that was weirdly the thing that massively improved my health and well-being last year, to the point whereas now obviously I can speak again, bit clunky, but it's still there.
And did you think, like, after that happened, that you could then use this is going to help other people as well?
Yeah, I mean, we just released, just before my stroke, we just released this Blue Health report, which was pulling together all of the sort of knowledge base and understanding and data about how potentially being in, around, close to, submerged, and in blue water, and how that can really impact your health and well-being on mentally and physically. So I knew it was there. I didn't realize, and I knew that fundamentally I felt that because I guess over many years, it's the place that I normally would end up going to feel the benefits of that space. But it was supercharged that 3 or 4 months where suddenly, as I say, it became like my own medicine chest. It was then when I really realized that was a bit of another eureka moment. And I then go, right, do I come back to the Wave? Can I continue to work? As actually, my sole purpose now, we've built this incredible place. let's make sure that this is now going to be accessible for people who really, really need it. And definitely people who just come to surf, and they, you know, and even if they're paying full price, they're still getting and reaping the benefits of that space. But it was just more important then to also balance that with people that can come and use it who just can't afford it.
Which is the Wave project, right? Is that when it was sort of opened up to, you know, people that, like you said, people can't afford it, and like they can get this benefit being in the water if it's learning a new skill and, you know, enjoying surfing, right?
Yeah, there's a whole raft of, so we've created sort of 3 waves through our sort of social impact of support, you know, growth. It's about finding people who've been really affected by, you know, particularly if they've got disabilities, that whole support of the adaptive community, people who've been affected post-COVID. So particularly, you know, lots of people working in the healthcare sector who've been really adversely affected by, you know, being under the cosh for 18 months non-stop. And also people who just don't have access because of maybe they're from a BAME community, culturally aren't in tune with surfing, or financially can't afford it. So we've got these 3 streams running the whole time. So the Wave project is one part of it. The Wave project is mainly dealing with young people who've got anxiety, early stage depression, you know, various sort of multifaceted neurological needs. But also, you know, last couple of weeks, we've had an amazing group from Open Minds Active who brought in some Somali women coming to surf for the first time. They've been part of a group of women who've been going sort of open water swimming, and suddenly they came on board like, actually, we want to have a go at surfing now. And so we work with Finisterre to try and sort out some garments, their sea suits that would allow them to be culturally respectful when they're in the water. And yeah, we got a whole group of Somali women surfing for the first time. So that kind of stuff is like, that's what we're all about now.
Yeah, nice one. And what do you have in the works for there? Are there any kind of like any more projects coming up at the Wave? And then obviously I'd love to kind of talk about. There's been a bit of chat about Wave London as well, and then these different sustainable developments which are going to be happening.
Yeah, so for us, really, it's just about, so we've probably got now probably 10, 12 different projects that we're working with at the moment. So we're doing a really good one where we've got this buddying system with some elderly people who are sort of stuck in a residential home, and buddying them with some kids who possibly from pretty tricky backgrounds, and using technology like GoPros, they can actually live stream a surfing lesson to these people in the residential homes, and they are acting as mentors to them, giving them loads of positive interjections at the right times, and then later we're going to bring them all together at the Wave. So it's that whole intergenerational mixing, and try to reconnect people, like super cool, using technology as well. But also the power of bringing people together later. We've been working with the Princess Trust for kids who maybe don't have any job opportunities or feel like they don't have the skills. So be able to bring them in, and hopefully going to start doing some voluntary and apprenticeship work with them. I mean, there's loads. I could rattle up a whole load, but fundamentally, it's now like, let's build. We've proven the concept. These things can work, and we can still run a really cool profit-making venture to make sure that our investors are really happy, but also make sure that that's balanced with social, and
the community, right? And then kind of get people involved and everyone benefits
all together. And that then goes, okay, this is something that is so replicable because we now know how to build it now. We know how to operate it. We now know how to do the social impact stuff. The environmental side, we're just hopefully this week going to find out about our solar array. So we've got the whole thing off grid in terms of energy supply. It's already from renewables, but we want to do it off grid in our own backyard, so to speak. And then you've got like this really amazing blueprint of like proper sustainable surf park, which we can then go, right, let's go again and let's go bigger. Let's go to London. Let's go to London because that's where the chimney pots are. That's where people will travel to. And it's a really amazing area of social deprivation and health issues that we can really help to solve. And then let's do it again. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. So we've now got like amazing backers backing us to then do a whole number of surf parks over the next 5 years.
Amazing. And are you looking like just in the UK, or are you kind of looking overseas as well?
Overseas as well. I'd say we're not restricted, but we would obviously, it makes sense to stay around about Europe. But fundamentally, once the model's been proven and we've got great operators helping us, then there's no reason why we can't go anywhere.
Nice. And how does it compare, I guess, with different parks and different technology, like Kelly's Park in California, for example? And, you know, is it almost like sort of striking deals with the local kind of governments and sort of, you know, it's almost like an arms race, so to speak, in like certain places we're kind of getting it done and getting it done properly and sustainably, where it's not just
I mean, you're absolutely right that this is, you know, it is a nascent industry. It's something, there's a bit of a gold rush in terms of who can do something, you know where, but there's some really, really important barriers to entry into this market. Is one is, you know, fundamentally the cost to enter the market is like massive amount of sunk cost before you even know how to build it, you'd have to build it, but you don't know how to operate it. So there's the price of entry is really high. And then of course, it doesn't matter how much money you've got. Fundamentally, there are laws in lands that means that you can't just build it anywhere in any piece of land. Obviously, nowadays, thankfully, a lot of the governments and local governments are very attuned to making sure that it's done sustainably. So it's not cool to just do it in a desert where there's a real drought.
Put up loads of shopping malls and
exactly. And I do know, and I can understand it as well. Lots of people are now going, actually, if you put a surf park and then build a whole load of residential and shopping malls and stuff around it, it can be the thing that unlocks the development potential. And that's some people's views, and that's fine. But for me and for our company, it's much more about that, creating a really great sense of place, great destination. Yeah, other things might spring up around the edge, but that's not the core. The core is it needs to be sustainable in its own right.
Yeah.
And if you've got other things that just add on and bolt on, it shouldn't be used as just an excuse to just be a developer and put masses of housing all around the place. I think it needs, personally, we'd only get involved in stuff that is like super cool and super sustainable for the future.
Nice one. And with Surfing England, I mean, what's next on the cards there? Is that sort of gearing up towards the next games, towards France, and is there sort of like trying to raise awareness and trying to raise development? Exactly. It's quite complicated politically. It's really complicated. Always has been. Being in the UK, GB is because obviously you got your English bit, which is the sort of the national side, and funding's starting to come through, albeit small, but funding's coming through to really develop the grassroots. Mm-hmm. And you need to get the English and the Scots and the Welsh and the Channel Islands all to come together to bring about the British surfing side, the Olympic side that feeds into hopefully Team GB. And that's been fraught for many years with sort of political infighting and all the rest of it. And so bringing this team together, these nations together that are respectful to each other and realize that they've got their own way of doing things, but needing to come together to make sure that there's a really
relevant and important future, particularly for the athletes and for the sport. And so it just, again, needs to go back to that sort of common mindset, that common purpose, like this is about the sport, this is about the athletes. Yes, we come with our own baggage at times, but fundamentally we need to be there to progress the sport and to get some of these amazing kids that are now surfing, their hearts out and trying to elevate them to the next level. So that's so exciting. I see these guys surfing every single day, and they are amazing, like really amazing. And it's now like we need to fund them and be able to give them a real structure to then be able to lift them up and compete at the highest level. So that's a massive part of what I'm doing as well in my spare time.
In all that time you have. And where where do you see the future of surfing going, sort of on like participant, like with participation? Obviously there's been a big kind of uptake during COVID, and have you kind of seen that continuing? Has there been more people now that the wave's open, for example, that has there been like way more demand for people surfing there, as well as sort of seeing people in the lineup, and that will increase? It's
both. I mean, it's great to see in many ways that we're really growing the sport, which is amazing. But there is fundamentally, particularly in the UK, there's the demand's there, but the supply isn't. We know that it's only good surfing around about 30-40% of the time. So that's it means that those days when it is good are getting busier, much busier. And I think we just need to recognize that that's the case. It's a sport that we want to grow and is really good to grow. I think people who want to go and find their kind of secret spots and quiet places, they probably need to work a little bit harder to go and find them, which is a shame, but it's just the reality. I think that we'll also have a load of people who will only surf at a surf pool, because it's close, nearby. It hasn't got the sort of transport issues that you normally have. So I think that there will be a whole core of people who will possibly only surf, in an artificial wave pool. And I hope that those people that do come down to the beach, by treating, as their customers as ours, treating them with respect, showing that everybody can do it with a smile on their face, have some kind of making sure that you're looking after each other, not just being out for yourself the whole time, then hopefully something that can then, that etiquette can spill over into the ocean. And hopefully, yes, it might be busy, but at least people are being more respectful, and also respectful for the environment if we can also get that messaging in there. So I think it's going to boom, there's no doubt. But therefore there's a real opportunity for us to put these other surf parks in other places and do them right, and be able to grow it in a responsible way.
And I think like with the etiquette, there's definitely something there. I mean, I remember I've like going surfing in Munich in the river in the ice park, and it's kind of like, people sort of wait their turn on the side, and then they see someone else who's not a local, and they're like, oh, this guy's going to eat it, we'll just let him go. They sort of wait, but everyone's like kind of respectful. So it's sort of like hopefully that then just passes on onto the ocean from taking these waves, these artificial waves, and taking them away.
And a massive part of that as well is around the diversity of the people surfing. And it's no doubt at all that the really early adopters of at the Wave Bristol are generally sort of male, middle-aged, white, and starting to influence that and go, right, let's start having some women-only sessions, and then see if we can get 4 or 5 of those women to start integrating into the normal session, so to speak, so that then we get much better mix. Because as soon as that happens, it just changes the vibe completely. When you get early morning and everyone sort of like just wants to get barreled and it's all men, it's a little bit of a testosterone pit in there. but they're all having fun and they're all respecting each other. But it definitely gets a little bit testosterone at the time.
Yeah.
Actually, as soon as you get 2, 3, 4 women in those sessions, it's like super cool.
Just changes.
Like, it's so good.
Everyone mellows out, right?
It's so much better. And everyone's like, "Oh, you go first. It's all good. Don't worry." And then like everybody's just like talking a load more, and there's not so much of a game face. And that's what would be great, is if we can see, actually, yes, the audience can grow down at the beach, but also the right kind of audience, people that's far more diverse, both gender, race, doesn't matter. Let's just get more people doing it, that would really diversify the whole sport. I think that's only going to be a good thing if we can do that.
Yeah. And then like more people having fun, more people riding different types of boards, and not this whole kind of status quo of what's cool and what you have to ride and all that sort of stuff.
Definitely. Right? Yeah. It's been really good at the Wave that we got like massive amount of bodyboarders in there. I quite often grab a hand plane, get in there, and it's basically like anything goes as long as you've got a leash attached to you. Just give it a go. There's nobody there that's like trying to be too much of a clique, which is great. It's a real all-comers party, really.
Nice. Cool. And what's the best way for people to find out more about the Wave, or if they want to reach out to you directly?
I mean, we're on every social media thing, just as the Wave. So you could definitely find out on that. And then I'm on most of those platforms at my handles at Wavemaker Nick, and you can reach out to me there. 100% happy to talk to anyone. Cool.
Well, Nick, thanks so much for your time. I've got to get over there and try it. I left the UK kind of before it opened up, but and then we went into lockdown. But would love to kind of definitely love to surf there, and we'll be keeping an eye on all the developments as well. It's really exciting times.
Yeah, you're more than welcome to visit anytime. But just really, really excited for the future. Really am.
Nice. Cool. Well, thanks, Nick.
Pleasure. Good to see you.